Hey, good morning, everybody. Guess what? It's me, Robert Phoenix, and it's your buddy and pal, Jasper, the astrological cat, broadcasting to you live from Fredericksburg, Texas. It's the 8th of January, 2020. Running a little bit behind today. My apologies. Was burning the midnight oil. I had a lot of energy that I had to discharge and get out. Lot to talk about today. Lot to talk about today. One of the things I was doing last night is I was working on a piece of, well, not really art. I wouldn't call it art. I wouldn't go that far as to say that it is art. But I guess it's a memery. And I was working on this last night. Good morning, Maury. Good morning, Ian. So yesterday's show was I ran so far away, and I started to think about the Trump and the flock of seagulls reference, and so I actually redid this image, and you can see it on yesterday's show page. Let me see if I have the other image. Hold on here. I got another version of the image. Maybe I do. I don't know. Anyway, sometimes I get a bug up my ass and I get involved in these projects. Escalation Day. There's Joni S, Uncle Glenn. What's going on? I have some thoughts to share about the potential war in Iran. If you've noticed the title of today's show, it is By Way of Deception, Thou Shalt Do War. And that is the motto of the Mossad. And this is it's not just the motto of the Mossad. I'm in a weird space. It's not a bad space, but I'm in a weird space. I was thinking of a combination of Mossad and massage parlor, which probably exists, by the way. That's what Jeffrey Epstein was running. He was running a Mossad parlor. That's what he was running. I'm mashing up. Things are getting mashed up. Jeffrey Epstein's Mossad parlor. That would actually be a good name for a band. If somebody out there has a band you want to use Jeffrey Epstein's Mossad parlor, please. You have my permission. I don't care. Look at Jasper. Jasper's got his priorities straight, right? Look at that. By way of deception, thou shalt do war. It's not just the Mossad's motto now. It is the maxim. It is the maxim of how our friends in the West are doing war and have been doing war for a while. All war is a deception. All war is sleight of hand. All war is programming. All war is marketing. All war is propaganda. You show me a quote unquote just war, and I'll show you. Okay. Now, Saudi Arabia attacking Yemen is not a just war, but Yemen's response is just, which is why Saudi Arabia has not been able to conquer Yemen. They may have destabilized them. They may have hurt them. They may have been able to blow off a lot of American fireworks from places like Lockheed, McDonnell Douglas, Raytheon, all the big-time defense contractors that Mr. Donald Trump and his wunderkind son-in-law, Jared Kushner, put together while they were there. But there's really no such thing as in the sense of a battlefield war. I haven't seen a just war in many years, maybe never in my lifetime. Like an outward act of aggression. War is by and large, war should be a defensive strategy. A defensive strategy. Jasper, that's a little bit much. Do you know Jasper is a plastic eater? I told him I would tell people that today. I'm going to start to give away Jasper's secrets. He eats plastic. He doesn't really eat plastic. He's kind of. But can you think of a just war? World War II wasn't just. World War II was another propagandistic front, right? That's what was going on. World War II was a propagandistic front. The Korean War, Are you kidding me? What the hell was that about? Still going on, by the way. Vietnam? Come on, we know what Vietnam is about. I mean, this idea that we were there to stop communism. I mean, if you go back and you look at both the Korean War, North Korea, which was theoretically funded by the Red Chinese and by the Soviet Union, and the Vietnam War, North versus South, North versus South. Where do you think they were getting their weapons from? They're getting their weapons and munitions from the Soviet Union. Who do you think was selling the Soviet Union bits and pieces of weapons and assembly manuals? The United States. We were selling our shit to the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union was assembling, putting all that stuff together, and then sending it off. That's what was happening. They had to get their weaponry from someplace. It wasn't just a war with bows and arrows. I mean, because if you look at the North Vietnamese in the 20th century, 1967, I mean, this is like the French, again, theoretically went in there and they built out Vietnam. That's what happened. Vietnam, there is no 20th century in Vietnam without the French, for better or worse. No, there's none. Right? And then you go further away from Saigon, the capital, into North Vietnam. There's even less there. There's a lot of, there's some people, but there's even less there. It's like, this is a country, Vietnam, that was probably living closer to 19th century standards. So they had to get ramped up and they had to get these weapons. They had to get training very, very quickly. And they were aided and abetted by the Soviet Union, the Red Chinese, who were buying parts and assembling the weapons. So we were essentially helping to arm the Vietnamese, North Vietnamese, so they could use our weaponry ultimately against this country. Same thing in North Korea. Same deal was going on. How do you think these extremely behind the times cultures all of a sudden get this red ideology and then have to come up with guns and weapons? Just like in World War II. The turning point of World War II was when the United States got involved. Jasper, man, he's wrecking the show today. When the United States got involved and started to build tanks for the Russians. Yeah, started to build tanks for the Russians. That's what was happening. These are communists. And what's interesting is I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was Henry Ford. I have to double check this. The Russians wound up creating, well, they didn't create it. The United States created a tank, a very formidable tank with, again, David, you're gonna probably come after me, David. And I'm okay with that. But the Russians at that time couldn't do shit. I'm sorry. They just couldn't do shit. They needed intervention. And I'm talking the Stalinist Russians. I'm not talking to people. Stalinist Russians. They couldn't do shit. So they had to have help and intervention, which is, Jasper, you got to go. Jasper, you need a timeout. Oh, I'm getting the cat butt. Come on now. Okay, he's becoming a detriment to today's show. I don't know what's up with him. Yeah, just lay down over there. There we go. All right. He's normally just a wonderful cat. But when I do the show, he's a little high maintenance, I have to say. Other than that, he's not high maintenance at all. But it's the Leo. It's that Leo thing in him. The Leo the cat, the Leo the lion. He's got to be in front of the camera, star of the show. I'm going to have to do a Jasper spinoff. Anyway, it's getting back to the Soviet Union. I mean, we're basically developing tanks and wheelbases and all kinds of stuff, right? And we're doing it for both sides. The United States was involved in the ramp up of, and again, you have to realize that after World War I, Germany was completely just obliterated, crushed. Like the soul of Germany was crushed. They had to do these reparations that came through in the Treaty of Versailles. I mean, just completely morally and economically bankrupted the Germans. So this is essentially from like 1917, 1918, all the way up until the late 20s, early 30s. So we're talking, what, 10 years, a little over 10 years. And in that 10-year span, the industrialization of Germany, once they kicked out the Weimar Republic, who were very much related to the Frankfurt School, once they kicked the Weimar Republic out, which was this kind of provisional government that came in after Germany was wiped out in World War I, the American industrialists came in and started to build Germany at a breakneck pace. Meanwhile, they're also helping Soviet Union, I guess, because war is a good business. And they knew ultimately that these two entities were going to clash. They were going to clash. And when they clashed, they were going to rewrite the map of Europe. They were going to put an end to the superficial. They were going to put an end to the superficial rule of the nobility. And I say superficial because the nobility was still ruling behind the scenes. But they were moving Europe into the 20th century, and they were going from feudal states into so-called democratic states. That was the new model. And that ultimately the goal was to create a European Union and bring everybody together. Okay, so we established that. But again, it's all about deception. It's all about, war is built on deception. By way of deception, thou shalt do war. North Korea, World War I. World War I was about deception. Totally about deception. We don't get into World War I without the Lusitania. And Lusitania was just headed across the ocean, steaming across the ocean, and it had all kinds of munitions on it. And there were signs, posters all over New York City. Prior to the Lusitania, it was a theoretically cruise ship. Loose lips sink ships. That's where the term comes from. Because what happened is that they were able to intercept messages. Now, who was sending them the munitions? See, that's the interesting question, right? Because they're munitions. Like the Germans are buying munitions. That's the one thing that people don't really wrap their heads around. Like they were buying arms from the United States and putting them on the Lusitania. And the Germans knew this, right? The Germans knew this. Here, hold on a second. No, I rephrase that. They were not buying arms. Take that back. Rewind it. The quote unquote allies were getting the arms from the United States. My bad. That said, they're cruising across the water. The Germans had intercepted that the Lusitania had payload on it, and they sunk it. And that was the entree into World War I. And why the fuck are they putting munitions on a cruise ship? For exactly this reason. They had to have a reason to get into World War I. And World War I was about to end. It was about to end. It was getting ready. But by the way, they've got a new movie about World War I out right now. They do this all the time. They'll have a war film that will sell the virtue of war. You won't see war films that look at war from the perspective of blood and deception. You'll just see the heroic components of war. And of course, the movie is called 1917. It's a big year. It's a very, very big year in world history. So the Germans and the English were about to come to an armistice. They're about to come to a truce. And they were going to end the war. we're going to kind of, okay, a lot of people died here. The French, a lot of French died, huge battle in Verdun. And it's like, okay, we're going to end this thing. And what happened was that, I hate to say this, but the Zionists came in. Theodor Herzl. You may have heard of him. He's the father of Zionism. And the Zionist Congress came in. They went to the English and said, look. We're going to bring the United States into this war. And you can win the war. And that was the plan. They had to bring the United States into the war because they just ramped up the Federal Reserve in 1913. And that's when we got involved in the war, was 1913. And think about that. That's 4 years. Bloody war. I would say, I don't have the exact figure. Let's look it up. I need to be exact. The Virgo in me. Okay, give me 1 second. One second. I'm hearing myself from another video. I don't want that. Okay, so let me just look at this. Oh, where are we? Okay, here we go. All right. I mean, the numbers are absurd here in World War I. The total number of military and civilian casualties in World War I was about 40 million. Wrap your head around that. If we can trust the statistics here, which aren't always trustable, by the way, 20.5 to 22 million deaths in World War I. If we can trust this, that's a lot of death. That's a lot of people being wiped out. Like, that's generational death. So Theodor Herzl and the Zionist Congress comes in and says, look, you're going to get the United States in this war. You're going to win this war. The United States needed it because they just passed the Federal Reserve Act and they just enacted taxation in 1913. And then Woodrow Wilson had to get us into the war. That was part of his deal. And so once you get into the war, guess what you get to do? You get to run up the tax bill. You get to run up the Federal Reserve. You get to borrow money so that you can, create all these weapons and munitions and create the uniforms and sew the uniforms. You get to borrow money for that. It was a perfect setup. 1913, terrible year. Terrible year. If there is any year that could be redone in the 20th century, it should be 1913. Like, if you were a time traveler and could go back and change 1 year, it'd be 1913. Like, if you had the power to change it, 1913, all the way, without a doubt. But so it's the Lusitania gets blown up. We got to go into that war now. And this is what happens. By way of deception, thou shalt do war. It may be the maxim of the Mossad, but it's always been the maxim around war. Always. There's no real just, the only real just cause for war is to defend oneself and defend one's territory. That's it. To defend. Now, I guess you could be proactive, I suppose, but look where it's got us. So let's fast forward this now. Let's bring it up to speed. Let's get it up to where we are right now with Iran. So I've been thinking more, like, I have not been posting a lot about Iran. Like, old Robert, like when the Gulf War happened, I was glued to CNN, which was a brand new network at that time. I was glued to it. I was like on this thing because it was big, and it was big. We had no internet back then. Well, at least we didn't have it. It was really big. And that's been kind of my tabula rasa with events. Moving forward, the internet replaced that. So as soon as this stuff started to happen with Iran, I'm like, okay, well, let's get a little distance from this. Let's not go all in. Let's not dive in. Steve and Chris and I did a wonderful show, and that was really a lot about the context and the history of Iran and Persia and sort of the run up to kind of where we are now. It wasn't like you're pulling this thing apart. And then yesterday's show was, again, and I looked at the charts, and so I've been in on what's going on, but I haven't gone all in a lot of ways, and there's a reason for that. And the reason is because I don't trust what's happening. I don't trust what's happening. By way of deception, thou shalt do war. Now, all of a sudden, the Q-tippers are like, oh, well, guess what? Trump and Rouhani, or Trump and the Khamenei, and they've got a side deal going on. And this was a way for them to get rid of Soleimani because they didn't like Soleimani. So this is all a very complex, Byzantine orchestrated, semi-soft coup. Maybe. What about what happened last night with these missiles being fired? As soon as I heard that, I'm like, okay, well, where have we heard this before? Well, we heard it in Syria, where we got to go get them now because they poison gas these kids, and oh my God, and we all know this bullshit. It's total bullshit. They didn't poison gas. I mean, yeah, they did. It was ISIS that was poison gas. It wasn't Assad. So what did they do? They fired a missile into a useless piece of architecture, probably with fair warning and fair notice so that nobody got killed. And when that happened, I'm like, okay, this could be the start of something, right? And then I watched Alex Jones just go all in and lose his mind. By the way, that's when Alex Jones started to pivot and lose it. There were three major events for the downfall of Alex Jones, besides Alex Jones. One was his extreme reaction to that event. Two, his extreme reaction to Trump. And three was Sandy Hook. Those three things marked the down. Oh, and the Sandy Hook, embedded in Sandy Hook, was how he handled Sandy Hook, which was not good. Not good. He handled Alex is all this bluster. All right. I see Alex Jones impersonation. Anyway, he had all this bluster, and then when it came to Sandy Hook, like for him to fucking defend himself, he like curled up like a sow bug. It was really embarrassing. This is the guy with the big barrel chest and taking on Cenk and the Young Turks at the Republican convention in Cleveland. And then when push came to shove and he really, 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 really had to step up and defend himself, he was like, I don't know, Little Debbie. Anyway, there's something going on with this war that I urge you who are in the chat room or listening or checking, I urge you to step back and not be sucked in, because things are not what they seem. When that missile flurry hit last night, I remember I was driving to the gym and I'm listening to talk radio, and talk radio will just ratchet your blood pressure up. If you're on the so-called conservative side and you believe the Matrix, the tale of the Matrix, you're like, let's get those people, right? And if you're not on that side, I'm not talking about you're on the left side, but let's say you're on the side of trying to see this thing for what it is, and you hear the blatant manipulation and lies and how these conservative talk show radio hosts spin things, it'll get your blood pressure up too. So if you want to avoid high blood pressure moments, stay off listening to talk radio right now, unless that's what you want. So, but I was listening to them, and the radio was on, I was heading to the gym, and they're like making a big fucking deal. Like, oh, we're on the doorsteps of World War III right now. We might be. We might be. But guess what? I don't have a care in the world about that. And frankly, neither should you. And the more that we invest in this scenario that they're creating for us, the more that we buy into it, the more that we make it a reality. Now, that's not to say that we run around and have our heads in the sand, because we saw what happened during the quote unquote rollout of the new age, and everybody did their very best to stick their heads in their navels and find nirvana, from within. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not completely dissing that. But while we were doing that, all this other stuff was getting rolled out. Okay. So I'm just urging everybody to take a step back, because I don't think things are what they seem. I don't think nobody died. I think the missile strike was and I was thinking about this just independently. I try to tune into things psychically, and I urge a lot of you to do that as well, because everybody's got psychic gifts. Some are more sort of endowed with that than others. And I'm not saying I'm like super endowed with psychic gifts, but I was a professional psychic for a few years. And I do have a psychic rapport with clients when I do readings. I pick up on things. We all have it though. So you can tune out from the mainstream coverage, and you can tune in to your own perception and your own inner knowing, your inner net, not the internet, but the internet. That's the highway and the byway of real truth. You can tune into that. Clear away your bias. Clear away your fight or flight syndrome. And step back and see things, see the events as they unfold. Do not get caught up in the Sturm und Drang of the moment. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't feed the doom meter. Just don't do it. That doesn't mean you check out. But this is a different way in order to interact with this event. Like, this is how we can, in our own way, shape and steer and sculpt reality. As we invest in the model of reality that's being rolled out for us, we make it more manifest. And what do we really want to manifest in our lives? Do we want to manifest participating in this scenario and making it become more real by adding our emotional input? Or do we want to notice it, see it, step back a little bit, do some discernment kung fu, and begin to look at this from a perspective that is asymmetric? That's, I think, the best place to be. It's the best place to be. Now, that said, they can continue to roll this out and heighten it, roll it out and heighten it, roll it out and heighten it, roll it out and heighten it, and that ultimately maybe something will happen. And if that's the case, then you deal with it. It's the way it is. But I think the key right now is to not give up the goods, not give up your center, not go, right? We're talking about energy. And you know what that feels like. You get really emotionally involved. You go, I'm going to really get into this, man. And then, keyboard warrior. I've been there. I have been there. And quite often in those, not quite often, but every now and then in those moments, I look back and go, geez, man, did I have to get so emotionally involved about this? And what happened? We're still here. We're still talking, still jiving. Yeah. And this is the case as well. Stay out of the doom program. Something is going on here. By way of deception, thou shalt do war. Nothing is as it seems. Nothing. So that said, I think the end game here, this is how, and I want to call like bullshit on the end game. I want to shine some plasma on the end game. I think the end game is to get to this critical moment, 11:59:59. 1 second to midnight. I think that's where kind of this thing is headed. And then we get into the AC scenario. And at the final moment where it looks like the whole world is just going to go tick, 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 and we're in doom land, that's when, of course, the AC steps in. Says, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. There's a different way. And then it's like, oh, yes, great, wonderful. Oh, we were so close. Thank you. There's a new film coming out, I believe, on Netflix, and it's called Messiah, and it has to do with the Antichrist. Right on time, right on schedule. So this is kind of, I believe that this is part of the scenario. And the theater to bring us to this place has to engage our emotional body. If it doesn't engage our emotional body, then they don't have the psychic fuel in order to stage their reality. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. So I believe that there's something else going on here. I feel like those missiles last night, it hit shit. When I heard them going, okay, what's really going on here? Should I be concerned about this? Should I really be concerned about this? Should I go run down to Walmart and buy a bunch of water? Which, by the way, you should have water anyway, regardless. Should I go down to Walmart and buy a bunch of batteries? There's only Walmart in this town. They're like, no, of course not. It's good to be prepared, of course, but no, that's buying in. That is generating the emotional output so that they can stage the reality that they want to stage. Remember that. See, this is the most important thing that you can use in order to change the script. It's important. You have incredible power, and it is through your intention, your focus, your emotional output that they tap into. We're batteries, people. We're batteries. And they're tapping into us when we go into these states. And then what we do is we help create their deceptive reality. It's good to know who the players are. It's good to understand this. We've been doing this for years now. This has been the awakening. Now we're kind of in post-awakening. Now what do we do with it? Well, what we do with it is we say, no, I don't consent to this version of reality. And the front line of consent is how you interpret and consume. How you interpret and consume what's being fed to you. And you can think, oh, well, this is great, and the deep state's being exposed and all this other stuff. And it's still kind of in that vector in some ways. Because at the end of the day, it is still too centralized. It's still too centralized. And what we need is decentralization. The time of these oligarchic and governmental and heightened Capricornian kinds of entities determining how we live our lives, whether it's in Virginia, where they theoretically want to take away your guns, or California, where they want to theoretically take away your water, or whether it's Facebook, where they theoretically want to take away your status for a couple days, right? This is a time for us to say, whoa, pump the brakes. Pump the brakes. This is not the world or the domain or this version of reality that I want to participate in. So I'm not consenting to how I'm going to interact with this canon of the Matrix. Does that make sense? So you can read about it, but nothing happened last night. Nothing. I'm in weird sync now. Nothing happened. Nobody was killed. Nobody was killed. It was, for all intents and purposes, fake. And and I've had this, I've been sort of like the Soleimani thing. Like there was a moment where I'm playing around with this, like, how do we know? How do we know? How do we know that he actually died? How do we know that he actually, well, okay, they had a funeral for him. I looked at the chart with Neptune on his sun and Neptune on his Mercury and Neptune on his Venus. Yeah, that's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to understand and really discern whether or not this guy really, in some ways, and I looked at the chart a bit more like, okay, I can buy into the mortality of him. I can buy into that. But I think this is where we need to be. Like if we've gone through this last decade of popping red pills and coffee, red pills and black coffee every morning, then we've got to be really, really diligent and on our toes and not just buy in. You have a choice. You have a choice. Remember that. You always have a choice. All right, let me check in with you guys. Let's see. It all seems very, Lori says, all seems very wag the doggish to me. The timing of it all is very suspicious. How convenient is having the same time these intents. I agree. My new saying, all I know for sure is I know nothing for sure. I like that, Uncle Glenn. There is no theoretically in Virginia happening. Okay. Yes, I know what they're doing. No, I get it. I get it, Michael. On alert. We got to be on alert. We got to be vigilant. And I do believe we have to be vigilant, okay? There's a difference between being vigilant and having fear. And that's a fear node. And so, yeah, in Virginia, you want to take care of business? Yeah. You want to make sure the UN doesn't confiscate your guns? I'm there. I'm with you. And I support you 100%. 100%. But what did Ralph Northam, what did he do? What did he do with abortion? He got right up to, that little vote. Of course, that vote didn't pass. But it really got our attention, didn't it now? Now he's doing the same thing. He's doing the same thing with the guns. Same thing, and if we're going to have to be on the vigilant side. I agree with that. But let's see it happen. See it happen. I say be prepared. Keep your powder dry. It's important. But to Michael's point, though, I will say this, is that now all of a sudden we're talking about Iran, but we are not focusing on what's going on in Virginia. Right? We're not. We're not. Look at this hand. Well, this hand over here is doing something else. Let's see what else we have. But there are some pretty disturbing things falling into place. What? What is disturbing? What is disturbing? See, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what's first and foremost now in my life is my peace. It's my peace. And your peace should be first and foremost in your lives as well. And things can be disturbing, but I'm not going to let them disturb my peace. Sorry, it's not happening. It's not happening. I am not going to allow these external events to determine how I'm actually feeling. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to but you see, we have got to move, people. We've got to move from disturbing event status to empowerment status. I can't express that ever more clearly. And so in these moments, we have to look for strategies of empowerment. It's time. Time, okay? And the strategy of empowerment is not to buy in on an emotional level. You can think things, and I can think things, and I can look at things, yes, disturbing, but the key here is we can't feed the beast. because the beast is able to operate its Babylon system, its Babylon program, based on our energy, our blood, our emotions, and we have to stop feeding the beast. It's important. 1 foot in this world and 1 foot in the other world. Look at Saturn. Let's use Saturn as an example. Saturn, again, theoretically, is the midpoint in our solar system. And I talk about this in astrology when I work with people and the conditions of Saturn. Saturn is looking backwards towards the inner planets and then outwards towards the outer planets. That's what Saturn does. It is a mediating force. It is past and future. It is the nexus point of the solar system that we know. And that's where we are now. Pardon me. And what does Saturn preach? Detachment. Saturn's detached, man. Think of CEOs. Think of presidents. They have a certain level of detachment that they have to be able to cultivate. Now, if they cultivate it too much, they become psychopaths. And they become so cold and uncaring that they're just machine-like. That's the downside of it. What is the opposite sign of Saturn? It is Cancer. It's emotion. And so the two work together in this fulcrum of temperance. The fulcrum of temperance. And that's where we are right now. The South Node is Capricorn. That's like, we're seeing it. We're seeing behind the veil. We're peeking behind the veil with the South Node in Capricorn. Oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. And it cuts both ways. So we're in a really interesting time. Really, really interesting time. We've got the eclipse coming up, lunar eclipse, and we also have the big Saturn-Pluto conjunction. We're gonna rock and roll with that. So Friday, I'm going to have Masaki Miyagawa, M squared, on the show, and we're going to do something kind of cool. I'm not going to tell you what it is, though. You're going to have to show up. Plus, I don't want to give up the goods. But it's going to be fun, trust me. It won't be your standard Q&A. It won't be your standard Q&A. So, yes, there are things that are disturbing that are happening. But let's turn the corner. And I'm not saying put your head in the sand. I look at stuff all the time. But I'll tell you where my focus is right now. My focus right now is to help as many people as possible, right? Because I can't do anything at this point. I mean, I could call shit out, and that's good. We got a bunch of Paul Revere's out there, and I've been Paul Revere for the last 10 years. But what I want to do is I want to help people, and I want to help people through my work, because that's where I feel like that's where the impact can really make. I can make, right? And that's where I want to support people in their lives so they can get through stuff and understand things and uncover and see things more clearly. That's where the empowerment is. People, we need to empower each other. This is the family moment, right? True Node, Capricorn, first decan. We need to empower one another. It's important. Support and empower. Don't feed their bullshit because they don't feed you. All they feed you is bullshit. Don't feed their bullshit. Don't allow them to take the things that you have in your life, the precious resources in your life, your heart, your mind, your emotions, these God-given things, this wonderful vehicle that we're in. Don't give it away. Figure out how to redirect the energy. Again, I'm not saying put your head in the sand, but we've got to shift. We have to shift now. And it's in these moments where our attention, they're demanding our attention. You got to pay attention, man. You got to leave your TV on 24/7. And we just came out of an attention whore fest with impeachment. Oh, yeah, where's that now? Just sitting there. And if you're a Democrat, I pity you. If you're somebody who's a Democrat and progressive, I pity you. Because these people trotted out this bizarre theater. And now it's just sitting there. It's like they just took a big dump and then walked away. It's kind of like San Francisco. It's exactly what it is. They took a big dump and they just walked away. And even if you're not a Democrat and you're paying a lot of attention to that and getting incensed about the Democrats, don't do it. Don't do it. All right, let's check in with you guys. Hit that like button for Robert. For some reason wants that. Robert for some reason wants that. Oh, well, thanks, Maury. Life is so much better when you don't live in fear. Absolutely. When the media blasts out crisis and signal turn inwardly and center in peace. Bonnie, I agree. The swing into action to bring centeredness and peace. Bonnie, I agree. Hey, there's Tessa. Hi, Tessa. Michelle says, both my parents are Capricorns and I'm a Cancer. Growing up, they used to amp up my emotions, only to tell me I was overreacting. Oh, that's like gaslighting, Michelle. Oh, man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You walked right into it. They're your teachers, right? I mean, parents are great teachers, and we're more younger. We're great teachers for them, although they don't know it. Genevieve says it's ludicrous on so many levels, 1984. Yep. Let's see. James says Mercury's in Cap with the South Node communicating out hide side. Out hide side. Out hide. Is that like goat hide? Annie says it's not always easy, Genevieve, but we got to talk ourselves off the ledge in those moments. That's when we know what we know comes into action. I like that. Hi, Anna. Nice to see you. Steve says we all knew this was coming. This is what it looks like. Be your mystical badass selves. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Christy says people are seeing through it. That's why we're being worked in every direction. Fear, fear, fear. All day long. Absolutely, Christine. You got that right. What else do we have here? Michael, great show there. Thank you, Michael. Ani, it's like standing in the center of a hurricane. Only the center is calm while everything around is blowing. Find that center. You're absolutely right. Our hindsight. Oh, thank you, James. Thank you. Hi. I was like, hide. I kind of like the hide side too. When you become post-political, see what it is, you can't stomach any political conversation. That's a really good point, Christine. It's a really, really good point. And I agree with you with that. And look, the thing here is that we have allowed ourselves to have our power tapped into consistently. And we've helped create their reality by emotionally investing in it. And we're at a point in time where it's very, very critical because the potentiators, we used to call them pots. That's broadcast terminology, pots. You pot up or you pot down. But what else gets in pots? Frogs. They throw frogs in pots and then they pot up, right? Anyway, lighter note. Let's shift it to a lighter note. So I was watching this new series last night, just briefly. I could only take so much. Well, I guess did I watch the whole thing? I think I might have watched the whole thing or close to it. It's called, let me see if I can find this thing. Let me see if I can find it. I just want to comment on it just a little bit because we need a little comic relief, right? It's called Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, and they've been really pumping the poop out of this on TV. And so what got my attention, obviously, is the fact that the main character, Zoe, has red hair. The red hair thing is like off the charts now. Blonde women, you have been replaced. You've now been replaced by red. You'd think that we're just a society of gingers. We're not. But that doesn't mean I don't like redheaded people. I do like redheaded people. I had a friend one time that was redhead, buddy, Jeff Weber. Interesting guy. When he played, man, he was a force of nature. Like when I played, kid football, like Jeff Weber could not be stopped. He was this redheaded, like big boned Viking kid. And you couldn't tackle him. You tackle him, you get a knee in your jaw. Like the only way you could tackle Jeff was just like, be a centrifugal force and hit him head on. Other than that, you wouldn't stand a chance. And I thought, man, Jeff is going to be a really good football player. And he became a drama kid. Like he got into drama. I thought that was really interesting. Okay. So let me punch this thing up. Do a little screen share. Here we go. I'll do this. Here we go. And I'm not going to share the sound. So let me give you the premise on this thing. And the premise is that this is Zoe. And she works for a startup, of course, in San Francisco, of course, with a bunch of millennials, of course. And I'll play you the trailer here. Okay, here she is. This is her crew, open work environment. She's always dressed in orange or red. And she's going in for a CAT scan. And because she has some weird thing going on with her head. And what happens here is that they're loading a playlist. The technician is loading a playlist so she can listen to music inside of the MRI. It's not CAT scan, MRI. And there's an earthquake, of course, in San Francisco. While she's under the MRI and the playlist is happening, and something extraordinary happens to Zoe. And there she goes, and see that's the playlist that's being downloaded right here. Right here. Where is it? Right. And oh man, come on. Oh, come on, YouTube. Play nice. Here we go. Try one more time. Let's just look at the playlist. Trauma alert. Oh, man. It's kind of like when you do Photoshop. Sometimes things don't always work. I got it. Oh, yeah, Christian rock. It's all Apple. Okay, so we know who's involved in the playlist here. Christian rock. Apple Music for Elliot. I guess Elliot is the guy who's doing the playlist, right? So you got a Christian rock playlist. Interesting. 90s chill mix. So all this is being downloaded into her head. Hello, 5G. All right, now let's go back. And this is her smart, sassy, my man and my woman neighbor. I'm not sure there. Could kind of go either way. Nice, very nice. This is a musical person. This is her caustic, big, badass, beautiful, black sidekick who is smart, sassy, and knows more than she does. Oh, there's a pineapple there. That's interesting because the pineapple represents the pineal gland, right? The pineal gland. Interesting. Okay, let's keep going. So this is her telling her about this weird phenomena that's happened to her. And what is that weird phenomena? Is that she can hear inside people's heads. And people start doing these musical acts. And they're doing this like it's like Glee meets I don't know, The Matrix. And all these people she gets to hear their inner thoughts, their fears, and they're singing things like whatever, help, I need somebody, blah, 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 blah. Her father is played by Peter Gallagher. He has ALS. Like, I guess this is a woman. Not that it's that big a deal, but you know what I mean? This is kind of like in vogue. She's always wearing orange or red. This is the guy who, her best bud who loves her, and he confesses his love into his song, and she can hear it. He doesn't know that she's basically seeing him perform psychic karaoke. This is what it is. Streaming the next day. So here we go. This is her walking down. Here's the download moment. Mama about 5G. And then she's explaining to her pal something really rare. So this is the first moment it happens. And there's another redhead. It's another redhead. By the way, this looks a little bit like my friend Donna Sullivan. And by the way, this is San Francisco. I've eaten at this restaurant on her left many times. This is North Beach. And this is, so here's the office. Let me go back. I'll just play this out a little bit. Okay, so here's the office. Everyone has a song in their heart, doing their song and dance. And this is the help situation. This guy, let's go back to this guy right here. Now he's the main protagonist. Now this guy, I love the look on his face. And this is totally, I mean, and they're also selling like this version, and it's real. I mean, this is how a lot of offices are created now. They have swings in them. They have open office spaces. It's like a big playground. It's like a big playground. This is how they've created a workspace so people can do menial tasks like coding and feel like they're having a good time. Not to say that coding isn't important. Just ask Joe Biden. But this dude, she catches him in a moment where he's there late at night. He's usually this really dynamic, cool guy, and he's having this almost suicidal moment singing, what's that song? Mad World by Tears for Fears. And he doesn't know that she's seeing his pain. So she's attracted to his pain. And they actually become a love interest in this show. You can tell where this is going. So now what do we have? You know, we have the obligatory racial mixing. I'm sorry, but it's just obligatory now. And I'm not, you know, like if you're in love with somebody, you're in love with somebody. Fine. I don't care. But this is the programming department at NBC. And then the other side, she's got a guy who's in love with her, and now you're into the duality trip where you have dynamic but tortured so-called Black African-American guy on one side, and then you have the not so dynamic and not so tortured, geeky, lovey-dovey, gooey white guy on the other side. So here we have the Gemini effect in full effect, and we have the ginger in the center. Okay, here we go. Keep going. So now he's doing it. There's Mary Steenburgen. There, everybody's like dancing around because the world always dances. And what else do we have here? That's her boss, who is a hard ass. This is her crew. And there's the crew all dancing. Only she can see this now. Remember that. Everybody gets to reveal their inner selves to her through a song. And look, now he's like trying to woo her. Right? So there we go. Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. And you have the actors as albums here, right? The best of, these are all their songs. So I watched it with interest. And I wonder if they're gonna. I wonder if she's gonna go down to like Market Street, where they have Bart and all the junkies. Like I think you could throw a little South Park in there and have like dancing and singing piles of feces. Wouldn't that be interesting? Because theoretically, the thoughts of the people who were, people evacuate more than just their waste matter. They're evacuating their thoughts or emotions. So maybe they could have like dancing piles of feces. Or maybe they could have like, oh, that'd be great. Have a bunch of junkies doing I'm Waiting for My Man by Lou Reed, all strung out zombie-like. I'm waiting for my man, which is a junkie song. Like how, and this is really interesting too, timing-wise, because Tucker Carlson is coming out this last week with a 5-part series on American Dystopia, San Francisco. And this comes out and basically says, hey, look, San Francisco is a cool, weird, wonderful place with cool, weird, wonderful people working at a cool, weird, quirky startup. And everybody breaks into song and dance. It's like Guys and Dolls on ketamine. Guys and Dolls on DMT, no, not quite DMT. Guys and Dolls on ketamine. That's what San Francisco is. It's interesting, the timing. Right? Oh, isn't this wonderful? It's a storybook land. It's a wonderful musical storybook land. But the music thing is interesting because how many times have you heard a song in a moment that was telling you something? And if you listen to the song, you could discern something deeper about an interaction. This happens to me. An interaction or a moment in your life. It's out of the blue. How often does that happen? A lot. So there's something here. I just can't see this lasting for 3 seasons of people running around singing. And, at some point it's just going to, like, enough already. Okay, let me check with you guys before I get out of here and see where we're at. Got a big day. Been super busy. Let's see. The world has an outdoor prison in that movie. The Time Machine comes to mind often these days. Where the carpet doesn't match the drapes. I haven't heard that one in a very long time. You've lost that loving feeling, brothers, righteous brothers. Hi, Charles. There are hardly any sitcoms that last anymore. The real prisons have no bars. Bada bing. Too many guys in tight jeans. Anything else? Remember the movie Time Machine, H.G. Wells' book. The older movie I remember where the future, where it was blonde and wore a toga. Yeah, it's the Time Machine. It was the Morlocks. It was basically this. You had these two disparate kinds of the breakdown, right? You had the noble savages who weren't so noble on steroids, and then you had the sort of the disembodied group who were all kind of, just living light, right? Living light, loving light, but they weren't integrated. If you want to watch an interesting version of that watch Zardoz. It's one of the most. It's one of my favorite movies. It's Zardoz is Wizard of Oz. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Sean Connery running around basically in a loincloth. You women, you probably like it. And maybe some of you men will like it too. All right, I'm out of here. The best prisoners think they're free. Tessa, you would know, right, through your work and through Phil's work. And Phil absolutely understood this. That was like is tabula rasa. And you know it too for your work as well, because you've done a bunch of stuff. By the way, I put some links to Tessa's Amazon page. It's got a ton of books. Like, she's a serious author. And if you want to dive into her world and her world as it relates to Phil, go to her Amazon page. She's got books for your Kindle. She's got hard copies. So go check that out. Okay, I am out of here. I am out of here. I'll be back tomorrow and come hang out, be a part of the scene. We'll be deconstructing more, no doubt. Masaki Miyagawa, he'll be with me on the Friday Forecast. It's going to be fun. I'm not going to tell you anything, but we're going to do some interesting and special things. It is time to creatively interact with reality, people, not react, right? Creatively interact, not react. So with that said, use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. He's Jasper. You're you, theoretically. Have a great day. Love you all. I'll see you tomorrow.